Before we begin today's story, if you're fascinated by World War II spycraft, ingenious survival tools, and secrets hidden in plain sight, you need to subscribe to War Rewind right now. The story you're about to hear involves silk maps sewn into uniforms, secret escape tools hidden inside Monopoly boards, and thousands of pilots who evaded capture using gadgets that seem straight out of a James Bond film. Except this was real. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Now let's talk about the maps the Germans never found. 1943, somewhere over occupied France. American B-17 bomber taking heavy flak. German anti-aircraft fire shredding the fuselage. Engines smoking. Aircraft going down. The pilot gave the order. Bail out. Abandon aircraft. Lieutenant James Reynolds pulled his parachute ripcord. The canopy deployed. He floated down toward French countryside. German-occupied territory. Enemy patrols everywhere. He had minutes before they'd be searching for him. He landed hard in a field, gathered his parachute, hid it, started running for tree cover. He needed to evade capture, reach neutral territory. Spain was 300 miles south, Switzerland was east. Both were possible. If he could avoid German patrols, if he had a map, if he knew where he was going. He reached the trees, caught his breath, checked his flight suit. The Germans would be searching soon. They'd find him, search him, take everything. But Reynolds had something they wouldn't find. Something hidden in his uniform jacket lining, sewn into the fabric between the outer shell and the inner lining. A silk map, detailed, showing occupied France, neutral borders, escape routes. Everything he needed to walk to freedom. He carefully opened a seam in his jacket lining, felt inside, found the fabric, pulled it out, unfolded it silently. Silk didn't rustle like paper, made no sound. The map showed his approximate location, showed routes south toward Spain, marked areas to avoid, indicated where resistance networks operated, coded symbols he'd been briefed on before his mission. Reynolds studied the map, oriented himself, chose a route, folded the map back to pocket size, put it in his boot, started walking south. Over the next 3 weeks, Reynolds walked over 200 miles, avoided German patrols, made contact with French resistance. They passed him along an escape line, safe house to safe house. Eventually, he crossed the Pyrenees Mountains into Spain, reached the British Embassy, was returned to England. The silk map had saved his life. The Germans who'd searched the area never found him, and if they had captured him, they wouldn't have found the map. It was too well hidden, too cleverly concealed, too perfectly designed. Thousands of Allied pilots carried maps like this, sewn into uniforms, hidden in boots, concealed in insignia patches. The Germans knew pilots were escaping, knew they had help, but they never figured out how the pilots were navigating across hundreds of miles of occupied territory. The answer was silk, and it was brilliant. This is the story of blood chits and silk escape maps. How British intelligence created a system that saved thousands of Allied airmen from capture. How they hid maps in places Germans never thought to look. And how they concealed escape tools inside Monopoly boards sent to prisoner of war camps. Tools that helped prisoners escape under the Germans' noses for years. The story begins in 1940, the Battle of Britain. RAF pilots fighting desperately against the Luftwaffe. British pilots had an advantage. They were fighting over England. If shot down, they could bail out and be back in action quickly. Home territory. But as the war progressed, RAF bombers started flying missions over occupied Europe. France, Belgium, Holland, Germany itself. Pilots shot down over enemy territory faced a different situation. Hostile territory. Hundreds of miles from friendly lines. No easy way home. Early on, pilots shot down over Europe were almost always captured. They had no escape resources, no maps, no local currency, no survival equipment. They bailed out, landed, and German patrols found them within hours. Prisoner-of-war camps filled with Allied airmen. British intelligence recognized this as a problem. These were trained pilots, expensive to train, experienced, valuable. Losing them to capture meant losing their skills for the duration of the war. If there was a way to help them evade capture and return to England, it was worth pursuing. A new intelligence organization was created, MI9, Military Intelligence Section 9. Their mission was escape and evasion. Help British personnel escape from behind enemy lines. Help prisoners of war escape from camps. Develop tools and techniques for evading capture. MI9 was led by some creative thinkers. People who thought unconventionally, who understood that helping people escape required ingenuity more than firepower. One of the key figures was Christopher Clayton Hutton, eccentric inventor, brilliant problem solver. He'd worked in various capacities before the war. Now he applied his creativity to escape and evasion. Hutton identified the fundamental problem. Pilots shot down over Europe needed maps to navigate, compasses to maintain direction, local currency for buying food or bribing helpers, basic survival tools. But pilots couldn't carry obvious escape equipment. Germans searched captured airmen thoroughly. Any maps, compasses, or foreign currency would be confiscated immediately. The tools needed to be hidden, concealed in ways the Germans wouldn't discover. Hutton started with maps. Traditional paper maps had multiple problems. Paper rustled, made noise when unfolded. That could give away someone hiding. Paper dissolved in water, rain, river crossings, sweat. A paper map could be destroyed easily. Paper tore. After weeks of hard travel, a paper map would be falling apart. Hutton had a better idea. Silk. Silk had unique properties that made it perfect for this purpose. Silk was quiet, didn't rustle. You could unfold a silk map in complete silence. Critical when hiding from patrols. Silk was waterproof, could survive rain, river crossings, being soaked in sweat. Would dry out and still be usable. Silk was strong, wouldn't tear easily despite being thin and lightweight. Silk was compact, could be folded to tiny size, fit in small spaces. Silk didn't decay, would last for months if needed. Hutton arranged for silk maps to be produced. Detailed maps of occupied Europe, showing borders, neutral countries marked clearly, escape routes suggested through coded markings, distance scales for planning, terrain features, rivers, mountains, forests, railways and roads for navigation. The maps were works of art, beautifully printed, accurate, detailed enough to be useful, but compact enough to be practical. Different maps for different regions. Maps of France for bombers flying those routes. Maps of Germany for deep penetration missions. Maps of Italy. Maps of the Low Countries. But printing the maps was only half the challenge. They needed to get into pilots' hands without the Germans knowing. They needed to be distributed secretly. And they needed to be hidden so effectively that if a pilot was captured, the Germans wouldn't find them. The solution was hiding them in uniforms, sewn into jacket linings, between the outer fabric and the inner lining. The jacket looked and felt completely normal. But inside, between the layers, was a silk map, invisible to inspection. Only the pilot knew it was there. Other hiding places were used too. Maps sewn into the seams of trousers, hidden inside boot heels, concealed behind uniform insignia patches, tucked inside hollow uniform buttons. The creativity was remarkable. Every Allied pilot flying over occupied territory received a silk map before missions. The maps were distributed quietly. No fanfare, just standard equipment issue. Here's your parachute. Here's your life vest. Here's your map, sewn into your jacket. Don't tell anyone it's there. The pilots were briefed. Classified briefings. If you're shot down, you have resources. The map is in your jacket lining. There's a small opening you can access. Pull out the map carefully. Use it to navigate to neutral territory. Destroy it if capture is imminent. Don't let the Germans know these exist. But the maps alone weren't enough. Pilots also needed something to show local civilians, a way to communicate, to ask for help. Most pilots didn't speak French or Dutch or other local languages. How do you ask for help when you can't speak? That's where blood chits came in. Small printed documents, carried by pilots, printed with messages in multiple languages. The message was simple, a promise and a plea. The text varied slightly, but the basic message was consistent. I am an American or British airman. I do not speak your language. I will not harm you. Please help me. My government will reward you for your assistance. The blood chit included the pilot's national flag, his serial number for verification, official seals to indicate authenticity. The promise of reward was genuine. The British and American governments would pay civilians who helped downed airmen. The blood chit was proof of that promise. A pilot shot down over France could show his blood chit to a farmer or villager. Without speaking a word, the blood chit communicated everything: who he was, what he needed, what was offered in return for help. The blood chits were printed in multiple languages, depending on the theater. European blood chits had French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, German. If you ended up in the wrong place, you might need to show it to Germans. Pacific Theater blood chits had Chinese, Japanese, Filipino languages, Malay. Middle Eastern ones had Arabic, Persian, Turkish. Some blood chits had over 10 languages, covering every possible region a pilot might end up. The goal was communication. If you couldn't speak, the blood chit spoke for you. Together, the silk maps and blood chits formed a comprehensive escape system. The map told you where to go. The blood chit helped you ask for help along the way. Both were small. Both were durable. Both were designed to survive the harsh conditions of evasion. And the system worked. Thousands of Allied pilots used these tools to evade capture. The exact number is hard to determine because many escapes were never fully documented. But estimates suggest several thousand successful evasions. Pilots who should have been captured, who made it back instead. The escape routes were remarkable. Some pilots walked hundreds of miles. Lieutenant Reynolds, mentioned earlier, walked over 200 miles from France to Spain. Others walked even farther, across France, over the Pyrenees Mountains, into neutral Spain, then to British embassies, then back to England. The journeys took weeks, sometimes months. Pilots hid during the day, traveled at night, avoided roads, moved through forests and fields, made contact with resistance networks when possible. The French resistance operated escape lines, secret networks of safe houses. They'd pass escaped pilots from house to house, closer to neutral borders with each transfer. The silk maps were essential for these journeys. Paper maps would have dissolved in the rain, torn from the rough travel, rustled and given away positions. But silk survived everything. Pilots could consult their maps hundreds of times over weeks of travel. The maps never wore out, but MI9 didn't stop with silk maps. They created other escape tools. Compasses were critical for navigation, but carrying an obvious compass would be suspicious. So they hid compasses in uniform buttons. The buttons looked normal, felt normal, but inside was a tiny working compass. Unscrew the button, compass inside. They hid compasses in other places too. Inside pens, inside tobacco pipes, inside various pieces of equipment. Always hidden, always disguised as something innocent. They created hacksaws from metal that could be hidden in bootlaces. The laces looked normal, felt like cloth, but inside was a thin metal saw, strong enough to cut through bars if needed. They printed maps on the back of playing cards. The cards looked normal from the front, standard playing cards, but soak them in water and peel them apart. Map inside. But the most audacious scheme involved Monopoly, the board game, popular in Britain and America, sent to prisoner of war camps through the International Red Cross. Germans allowed board games, thought they helped with prisoner morale, kept prisoners occupied, less likely to cause trouble if they had entertainment. MI9 partnered with Waddington's, the company that manufactured Monopoly in Britain. Together they created special Monopoly sets. These weren't sold commercially. They were made specifically for prisoner of war camps. The special Monopoly sets looked identical to regular sets. Same box, same board, same pieces, same money. But they had hidden contents, real escape tools concealed inside. Silk maps were hidden between the layers of the game board. The board was made of folded cardboard, thick. The silk map was placed between the layers when the board was manufactured. From outside, the board looked and felt completely normal. But hidden inside was a detailed escape map. Real compasses were hidden inside game pieces, the metal pieces, the car, the thimble, the iron. Some were hollow, tiny working compasses hidden inside. Again, looked completely normal from outside. Real money was hidden mixed with the Monopoly money. Real German marks, real French francs, various currencies. The bills were similar size to Monopoly money, mixed in with the fake money. Easy to overlook, but real currency a prisoner could use if he escaped. Small metal files were hidden inside the board edges. Thin, strong, could saw through bars if needed. Even concentrated food tablets were hidden in some sets. High-calorie emergency rations, concealed in the box structure. The special Monopoly sets were sent to prisoner of war camps through the Red Cross. The Red Cross packages were allowed under international law. Germans couldn't refuse them without violating Geneva Conventions. The games arrived. Germans inspected them, saw board games, saw playing cards, saw books, nothing suspicious. Approved them for distribution to prisoners. Prisoners of war knew which Monopoly sets contained escape aids. There was a code, a small mark on the box, a period after Red Cross on the label, or the box being a slightly different shade. Prisoners were briefed before deployment. If captured, look for these signs. The marked Monopoly sets have tools inside. Prisoners would receive the Monopoly set. Play the game openly. Germans watching saw men playing Monopoly. Nothing suspicious. But in private, they'd carefully peel apart the game board layers, extract the silk map, remove compasses from pieces, separate real currency from fake. Now they had escape tools, right under German guards' noses. Several documented escapes used tools from Monopoly boards. Prisoners who cut through bars with hidden files, who navigated using hidden compasses, who bought civilian clothes with hidden currency, who found their way across Germany using hidden maps. The Germans never caught on. For years, monopoly boards delivered escape tools to prisoner-of-war camps. The Germans never suspected that innocent board games were actually escape kits. They saw prisoners playing Monopoly, thought it was just entertainment, never realized what was hidden inside. This continued until late in the war. Eventually, after the war ended, the truth came out. British intelligence declassified some information. Veterans told stories. The Monopoly escape story became known. Waddington's, the company, eventually acknowledged their role. They'd produced special Monopoly sets for MI9, hidden maps and tools inside, helped Allied prisoners escape. It was a remarkable story of creative problem-solving. After the war, some of the special Monopoly sets survived. They're incredibly rare now. Collectors seek them, museums display them. Physical proof of this ingenious scheme. The silk maps also survived. Thousands of them. Many pilots kept their maps after the war, souvenirs of their escapes. Today, these maps are collectible. Depending on rarity and condition, they can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Common maps, France, Germany, sell for $500 to $1,000. Rarer maps, specific regions, unusual areas, can be worth $2,000 to $5,000. Maps with documented provenance, proven to have been used in actual escapes, can be worth even more, $5,000 or more. Collectors prize them, not just for monetary value, for historical significance. Each map represents a story. Someone carried this. Someone used this to evade capture. Someone made it home because of this piece of silk. The principles behind silk maps and blood chits are still relevant. Modern militaries still issue blood chits, updated for current conflicts. Different languages, different currencies, different regions, but same concept. Help personnel evade capture if shot down. The blood chits are printed on durable synthetic fabrics now, more waterproof than even silk, include photos of the person for identification, have more languages, more detailed information. But the core idea remains. Show this to locals, ask for help. Government will reward assistance. Modern escape and evasion training incorporates lessons from World War II. The importance of pre-mission briefings, the value of having tools hidden in equipment, the necessity of knowing how to navigate without obvious maps. All these principles were established by MI9 and refined through thousands of successful evasions. The story of silk maps is ultimately about ingenuity, about solving problems creatively. The problem was how to help pilots evade capture. The solution wasn't more firepower or better armor. It was silk and hidden compasses and monopoly boards. Christopher Clayton Hutton and MI9 understood something important. Sometimes the most effective weapon isn't a weapon at all. Sometimes it's information, navigation tools, communication aids, things that help people survive and return home. Thousands of Allied airmen returned home because of silk maps. They survived being shot down, evaded enemy patrols, navigated hundreds of miles across hostile territory, made contact with resistance networks, crossed into neutral countries, all because of a piece of silk sewn into their jacket lining. And the Germans never figured it out. They searched countless captured pilots, never found the maps. The pilots who escaped and were later captured knew to destroy their maps before surrender. The Germans knew pilots were evading, knew they had help, but never understood how they were navigating so effectively. Even the monopoly scheme stayed secret throughout the war. Germans allowed board games into camps, never suspected they were delivering escape tools. It was hiding in plain sight at its finest, the most obvious place. right where Germans could see it. And they never noticed. That's the genius of MI9's approach. They didn't try to smuggle tools past German guards. They disguised the tools as something innocent, something the Germans would allow. Board games, playing cards, uniform buttons, things so ordinary they were invisible. It's a lesson in deception. Sometimes the best place to hide something is right out in the open. Make it look innocent. Make it look normal. Make it something nobody would question. Then it becomes invisible. Silk maps, blood chits, and monopoly boards, tools that seem simple, almost mundane. A piece of fabric, a printed document, a board game. But together, they formed a comprehensive escape system, a system that saved thousands of lives, a system the enemy never fully understood. The next time you see a monopoly board, remember, during World War II, some of those boards contained real escape tools, hidden maps, hidden compasses, hidden inside a children's game, helping prisoners of war escape from camps, right under German guards' noses. The maps that Germans never found, the tools hidden in plain sight, and thousands of pilots who walked to freedom because of a piece of silk sewn into a jacket lining. 1943. Allied pilot shot down over France. Lieutenant James Reynolds landed in occupied territory. German patrols searching. He had a silk map sewn into his jacket lining. The Germans wouldn't find it. Didn't know to look there. Didn't know silk maps existed. Reynolds walked 200 miles, used the map to navigate, avoided German patrols, made contact with French resistance, crossed into Spain, reached British embassy, returned to England. Thousands of pilots had similar stories. Silk maps sewn into uniforms, blood chits promising rewards for help, hidden compasses in uniform buttons, all designed by MI9, British intelligence unit dedicated to escape and evasion. But MI9 went further. They hid escape tools inside Monopoly boards. Real Monopoly games sent to prisoner-of-war camps through Red Cross. Germans allowed them. Thought they were just entertainment. Inside the boards, silk maps between cardboard layers. Real compasses in game pieces. Real currency mixed with Monopoly money. Metal files hidden in board edges. Everything a prisoner needed to escape. Prisoners knew which sets contained tools. Coded markings on boxes. They'd receive the Monopoly set. Play openly. Germans watching saw nothing suspicious. In private, they'd extract the hidden tools. The Germans never figured it out. For years, Monopoly boards delivered escape kits to camps, right under guards' noses. After the war, the truth emerged. MI9 and Waddington's had partnered, created special Monopoly sets for escapes. Ingenious, hidden in plain sight. Silk maps saved thousands of lives. The Germans never found them, never understood how pilots navigated across hundreds of miles of occupied territory. The answer was simple: silk sewn into jacket linings. If this story amazed you, if you're stunned that Monopoly boards contained real escape tools, you need to subscribe to War Rewind right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We cover the spycraft, the ingenious tools, the creative solutions that actually won wars. Silk maps and Monopoly escapes are just the beginning.